Hello, YouTubers. Hello, YouTube. This is Gametist. Hello, YouTube and Mr. People out there. This is Gametist, and I'm here to analyze Papers, Please today, which is an amazing game. If you're a game designer or a student or anything like that, you have to play Papers, Please. This is a master class in game design. So just so you know, this is not a game review and it's not a gameplay thingamajig. We're actually going to be analyzing the game from a game designer's perspective. So we're going to be analyzing what's good about the game, what's wrong about the game, how they use certain tools and how they use certain techniques. So like I said, if you're a game designer or a student, I think you might find this very interesting. So let's get started. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff with this game. So storytelling, a bit about puzzle games, how to design tutorials and levels, and how to set the mood. And talking about the mood, Papers, Please is something amazing. I would never talk about the title screen in any game, but I have to talk about the title screen in Papers, Please. It is an incredible job in putting you in the mood. You haven't even started playing the game, and you already know what the game is about and what mood it has. Black background, depressing colors, it's gray, the music is depressing, it's very retro with a lot of pixely. I mean, I know this was done by like one guy, so I know he didn't have a lot of resources, but here's the thing, if he had $1 million to make this game, these graphics would still be the best graphics to use for this kind of game, because it gives you a very retro feel. It feels like this game was made in early 90s, late 80s, which is, you know, when the Berlin Wall was still up, late 80s. So it really fits the mood perfectly. So we're gonna start in story mode. I haven't played this game in a while, but I remember most. Oh Jesus, that's a lot of games. Start a new one. And here's one thing about this game already that I really like about the storytelling part of it. Notice how this intro has very brief texts. You know, I mean, people love to have these long cutscenes with long dialogues and story, and nobody gives a crap. Players want to get to playing the game as soon as possible, and they will not read long texts. But breaking it up like this, where you have a big image, one sentence, it really makes you want to read it, because it doesn't take that long, so you do read actually the story. So try to condense it to its what does a player need right now. He doesn't need to know the whole story of the universe. So the only reason people will be interested in your characters is once they get to know them. And in movies this works, in games not so much. You have to get people to play with those characters and to play in that world, because that's what they bought a game for. They didn't buy a movie, they bought a game because they want to play, they don't want to watch a movie. So try to tell the story as they play from the beginning, which is what this game does, and you'll see it. And then later you can afford to put more text. So things like, for example, Metal Gear Solid, they have tremendous cutscenes. But the good thing about that game, or the reason they can get away with that, is because you've been playing with this character forever. So of course you're interested in knowing more about his life and about the characters he's involved with. So you put up with it because you already played with this character. If Metal Gear Solid began, let's say you haven't played Metal Gear Solid ever, and the game began with like a 20-minute, cutscene, you would probably, it wouldn't feel very well. It wouldn't feel like a good way to start the game. But let's get to it, because I don't want this video to be too long. So yeah, as you can see, sentence, that's it. Very simple graphics. And the UI, the user interface, is really simple. Next. You know where the button is. Good thing is they use next, so a lot of the buttons will be at the bottom. Next is a button, everybody knows that next is a button. So, but it already tells you where the buttons will be, because later those names will change. Glory to Arstotska. I don't know how the hell you pronounce that. Anyway, So, this newspaper thing. This newspaper is used in a very interesting way because it actually gives you feedback on what you've been doing. It's a very simple thing. Again, only one sentence, which is the best thing about this game. Just brief, straight to the point. But it's very good because you actually feel some feedback. As you progress in the story, things will change. And this just reinforces those changes. You actually see that the world is changing around you. So, and here's a very interesting thing. Before we had next, now we have walk to work. This is a great way. You could have just said next or begin the day or start or whatever. The game designer chose to tell the story in a button. So the button says walk to work, so which tells you two things. First of all, it's freaking depressive. Second of all, you're poor. You know, and you know the world you're living in. I mean, not only he's not taking a car, he's not even taking the bus. He's walking to work. So already you feel like you're a nobody, you know what your place is in the world, and you know what this game is about. With a freaking button, that's it. So, very important thing to look at. I mean, every little detail that you have, you're going to notice I'm going to talk about very little details, but it's very little details that count, especially when it comes to game design. So, you have to pay attention as a game designer to all these little choices that the game designer chose to do. So, let's walk to work. November 23rd, 1982. So graphics, I love the graphics. I love really retro looking games, so yeah. And the color scheme is depressing. It's gray, it's brown. It's great. It's exactly what you need for this game. If you had colorful colors, it wouldn't have the same feeling. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't make any sense. So it just works, you know? It's a very good choice of color palette, and for those who don't know, many game designers who are not artists but they are looking for, you know, a good color palettes and stuff, I recommend colorlovers.com. I think it's .com. That's a great resource for to get color palettes for your games. It's really simple, straightforward. You can get the feeling and the mood that you want. So this game, one of the best things this game has is the way it tells you the mechanics of the game. So it's a very hard game to put into a genre. I wouldn't say it's a puzzle game. I wouldn't say it's an adventure game. It's kind of a mix. I don't know. But I feel like it has a lot of puzzle game in it, or at least a lot of puzzle game and adventure game, and I'll explain why. Puzzle game because basically you're looking for patterns. And a lot of the puzzle games, the way they work is you're looking for patterns. People like seeing patterns. That's why we organize things at home. We like to have the books from highest to lowest and things like that because humans like patterns. That's something that's integrated into us. So a lot of the games that we are given are about organizing things and putting them in a pattern. And this game is, you're not really organizing things, but you are looking for patterns. You are looking, you know, is this passport expired? Is the name correct? Is this the genre? The sex of the person, I forgot the word, gender. The gender of the person, correct. All this time just to say gender, which is not that important. What was I even saying? Oh yeah, you're looking for patterns. So I would say it's a puzzle game in that sense. But the good thing about this game is the way it presents this mechanic. A bad game designer would choose to explain half of the rules or all of the rules. A very bad game designer would choose to show all the rules at the beginning. But in this case, a game designer chose to show like one. You'll notice in this first level, you're basically just checking the expiration date. And it's a very good thing because it's also a very intuitive thing. I'll explain why in a second. And as you progress through the game, it just becomes more and more complicated. Now, you're going to have all these rules, and it's very important that you give them in little doses to the player because it does two things. It first of all doesn't make the game too complicated from the start, so it makes it easy to pick up, and all you need is to pick it up and feel like you can master this game. If you make it too complicated, people are going to say this is too complicated, I'm never playing this, and they could. You just didn't give it in the right order. So first of all, it makes it easy to learn, and second of all, it keeps retention of the player. So don't use all your weapons at once. Spend them slowly so that you can retain the player for longer. So the player will always find something new. They will always find a new rule. They will always find something interesting and a new surprise. They're like, oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do that. That's awesome. So dosify your rules. A lot of game designers tend to put too many rules at the beginning or too much information at the beginning. Okay? So let's get started. You will see the interface is very simple. This is blinking, you know it's a button. This is an arrow, you know it's a button because this is all black and there's just a little button right there. So the interface is very interesting. This interface over here for now it's a little complicated, but or not complicated, but it's not that intuitive, at least from my perspective. But it's very easy to pick up. It's not very intuitive right now, but it will be very soon, and you'll see. And these tabs you see them in a lot of documents, in a lot of apps and everything. When you see a folded page, you know you can click on it. So if you want to read the instructions, you can. People will not read the instructions at the beginning. Players like to get straight to the point. So, but this will change. This is a game where it actually changes. At the beginning, you might skip it because you're like, ah, screw it. So let's imagine we didn't read it, because you always have to count on the worst case scenario. What happens if your players do not read the rules? Will they still understand the game? Well, let's see. There's a blinking button. Let's click on it. Next. Okay, so you're like, oh, okay. So people come and they give me stuff. Oh, great. So you click on it, it doesn't open. You move it around, and what's the biggest space right here? There's a feedback, you know it's supposed to be here. Now, when you open this, you also understand perfectly what the game is about. Red, green, denied, approved. The design is perfect. It's big, it's chunky, you know exactly what to do. You have this square, which is about the same size. It's really, really, really intuitive. It's perfect. So, the thing about the rules, right now, what I was saying about the rules before, about the puzzle thingy, right now there's not much you can go with. There's a picture, there's sex, there's the name, there's not much you can compare with. So you know that the only things you can compare are the picture, the gender, I got that word at the first time this time, and the date. So it's pretty intuitive. Now let's see, everything's okay, yeah, and you click on it. And then you guess, you put it here, she doesn't pick it up, okay, so let's give, okay, there you go. That is very important actually, because, I don't know, some players might not get it. And this simple thing, I mean, I know I'm getting into very small details, but like I said, as a game designer, you have to get very, very scrutinous about all the details. If you notice how the arrow change, now this is something we take for granted, but if this cursor didn't change to a hand, you wouldn't know that you have to click on it. So keep that in mind. Very little details, every single detail. A lot of times games don't work or players don't understand games, and it's the simplest thing. So anyway, let's give it to her. I'm taking too long to explain the freaking cursor. Next, I guess. Hello. Like your haircut. This checkpoint is smaller than I expected. You know, okay. So you notice that people might say different things, which is pretty cool. I'm not going to take too long to check it, so I might screw it up. Is this a guy or a girl? Anyway, we'll find out, I guess. Oh, there you go. This is from Import. Oh, because he's not from Ostrowska, I think. Anyway, so here you get a feedback of the bad things you did. Now, the good thing about this game is you don't get a feedback for good things you do, but you do get a lot of feedback for the bad things you do, which it's part of the mood as well. It's depressing. So, but it's very important because you know that you actually have to pay attention. So let's open it, and now you know that there's some things you have to check. And you might say, well, there's more stuff down here, and you open this and you say, oh, basic rules. And it's very good because it only has 2 sentences. The basic rules aren't 5 pages. Entrants must have a passport, Etruscan citizens only. Great. Let's put this on the side. So you're guiding the player even if he doesn't read the rules, because he's curious about why things aren't working or they are working or whatever. Let's get one more guy. Now we're not going to be able to see a lot about this game. It's a shame because this game is, like I said, it's fabulous. I mean, right now it's very simple choices. It looks like a very stupid game, but once you start playing it, you realize there's a whole world into it. Because later on, you'll actually have to make moral choices. But I'll get to that in a second. She's from Republica, so nope. Sorry. Bye. See if we can pass this level relatively quickly. I think yes, that's it. It was a mistake to open this checkpoint. So here you're given a taste of a warning of what might be coming. Manage your expenses. Okay, so again, very simple rules, but very straight to the point. And this screen is very important because a lot of low budget games or a lot of beginning game designers, they make games that have great systems and they have great mechanics and they're very interesting on themselves. But the reason players don't keep on playing it or they don't care enough about it is because they're missing an overall objective. What's the overall objective of the game? Now, it's very important to introduce that from the beginning. And in this game, for example, it could just be that you go to work and that's it. You don't need this screen telling you about your family, because also you can't really interact much here. You just say what you want to pay and you can't really choose what you want to pay because you don't have any money. But this brings the stakes really high, and you know what you're fighting for. You know why you're going to work every day. You're going to work so you can keep up your family. This is very important. If the game didn't have this, you would play for a while, you would say, this is fun, that's great, and then you would stop playing it. But because you have a family to feed, basically, you kind of keep playing it because you feel a certain responsibility to continue playing, and also a certain curiosity because you want to see if you can achieve it. So it's important to have small loops where you just do, in this case, check a passport, check a passport, check a passport, check a passport, and then bigger loops of what's the whole point of the game. Am I trying to save the world? Am I trying to save my family? What am I trying to do? So very important for games to have that. Otherwise, people will just not keep playing it. There's something else about this as well. So yeah, also this screen makes it really interesting once the moral choices come into play, because right now we haven't taken any moral choices, but later there will be people that come to the border and they'll be putting you in some compromises, in some compromising situations. You'll have to choose to let them in or not, and it'll basically depend on you. Some people might ask you to save their lives by letting them in or letting them out. You actually have to make choices. It's not a matter of following the rules anymore. It's about following your own morals. Now, like I said, if you didn't have the screen where you had a family, you would probably be a bit more, your choices would be different. You wouldn't make the same moral choices than if you have a family, because a lot of times, let's say you want to help somebody, but it would be hurting you. Now, if you don't have a family, you're like, I don't mind, because I'm going home and I don't have anything to do. I finished the level and there's no consequences, so it doesn't matter if I help this person. But if this person means that your son is gonna be hungry or get sick, or you won't be able to pay the rent, now the moral choice becomes stronger, and it's not so frivolous anymore. You actually have to make real choices. There's a debate between two things. It's not a clear choice. Oh, should I help this person? Yes, because it's a good thing. Well, it's not the good thing, because if you help this person, there's a conflict there, and conflict is a very important thing for storytelling. It's also good for game design, but my background is a lot from film, and conflict is a great tool for dramatic moments and for storytelling. So it's very, very important to add conflict. Make sure you have conflict, that things aren't just A or B and there's a clear choice. Any choice is good, but any choice is bad at the same time. Sort of like if you play Fallout, there's the perks that have good and bad things. So it's, was it Fallout? I think so. Or maybe it was another different game. Anyway, so you know what I mean. Make sure you do that if you're trying to tell a compelling story. So, sleep. And next, and like I said, Greskin checkpoint a success. Enter restrictions to relax, admit foreigners, blah blah. So, you might not read it into detail because it's very short, but later it'll be a big point. And that's the interesting thing about it. We don't want to flood the player with a bunch of information. So, the newspaper is there to set up for something else later. Again, players might not read it, but maybe they'll read it a bit more as the game progresses, because they're more interested in the story and they're more interested in how to avoid screwing up and getting those notices. They will start reading these rules actually. So you still have to plan it so that the player will understand it even if he doesn't read the rules, but keep in mind that the more the player plays, the more he'll be interested in getting involved in the game. That's why also players that play a game for a very long time, they'll go into forums and they'll check YouTube videos on how to play this game and tips and tricks. It's because you're already in the game. You don't do that at the beginning of the game. You do that once you're hooked to the game. So, to be quick, let's get to it. And I think this level is quite important to play because of something that happens. So I don't want to spoil anything. So what are we doing now? Let's take basic rules. Have a passport and be current. Okay, so not as Truska anymore. She's good to go. I think her hair is a little different, but who cares? So yeah, like I said, it's a very interesting puzzle game. It's very different. 82, is it on? Nope. Sorry, sir. And as you can see, there's no moral choices, and that's the interesting thing, because right now you don't want to be flooded by stuff. You just want to find the rules, and you want to feel like you're mastering the rules. Later, it gets more complicated, and that's what makes it so interesting. And I'm just waiting for certain characters to appear so that I can explain. Oh, here, for example, this is a very simple thing. It says, "Hurry up! I am meeting my bus soon." Now, this I don't know if you heard the sound effect, but it's very good because the sound you're used to a certain sound effect. It just says "Hurry up," something like that, just once, and he says it 3 times. So you kind of say, "Oh, there's something different about it." So you actually read it, and when you read it, you start having moral choices. He's a bit of an asshole. He's pushing you to be fast. You actually can tell him to screw off, and that's it. So it's weird because these are not real people. It's not a multiplayer game, but you feel quite attached to these virtual people by 2 simple phrases. "Hurry up, I'm trying to see my son," or whatever he said. And it gets deeper, which we'll see later. I mean, this is very light, what I just explained, but the deep stuff comes later, like really saving people's lives and stuff like that. Who are you? What is this? I'm gonna reject him because he looks different in the picture. Oh, by the way, here's another thing about the user interface which was very interesting. There's a red button all of a sudden, and it's good to have a red button because it wasn't there before. And a red button amongst this gray thing, by the way, I'll explain that in a second, so don't pay attention to that. Amongst this gray thing, it really sticks out. So you're going to click it for sure. And when you click on it, it says highlight discrepancies. So you know what this button is automatically because you're looking right there. You're already looking there. If that text was somewhere else, I mean, I know I'm getting very detailed about this, but like I said, if you want to be a game designer, you have to be very, very picky about these little details. But anyway, it's right there. You read it, you know what it's about. You don't know what to do, but everything's grayed out, and you can click on stuff and you realize that you can do stuff. You can use it later. So now this lady came over and gave me something else, which is kind of like, what the hell? And you open it, and it's kind of funny because you realize that it's a strip club, and it's surprising, and it's such a stupid little thing, but it hooks you because you kind of realize there's a lot of surprises in this game. What else am I going to find? And right now, can I use this for something? Am I going to use it in the future? Are there going to be other more important things that I can use in the future? So it's a very interesting way of surprising the player, because at this point the player is already getting used to the mechanics. Let's give it to her because I think my time is running out. Go. So yeah, it's such a little detail. It really keeps you interested. It's a very small development effort, and it hooks you in a little bit. You realize that the game is not so flat. There's a lot more going on. Oh, and this is a good part. I'll let you watch for a second in case you haven't played the game before. So here you're like, what the hell is going on? You're paying attention to the top screen because everything is dark, and what the fuck just happened? So you're playing this game where there's no action, there's no violence, there's nothing, there's papers. That's all you're doing. And suddenly this shit happens. So we're talking about surprises and things that what might happen later. This is a great example of this. The player gets the rules at this point. He doesn't know what to expect because he might think that this is the whole game is like this for the rest of the, till the end, or there might be something interesting. And here you prove to the player that there is actually something really interesting. So this explosion really tells you, holy shit, stuff is going down, shit is getting real. And this just pushes the stakes really high up because you realize things aren't as simple as they seem. I mean, this is all a storytelling side of it, but it's also going to have to do with the mechanics. You know that the game is going to get pretty hardcore. It's already depressing, it's already hardcore. Well, there's more to come. These little things, I didn't even interact there, but it affected my job. It interrupted the game. I mean, it's such a great way to realize that you have very little control over this world, and there's a lot of shit that's going to happen. So, and that little thing is really exciting. So I don't think I'm going to get too much into it because I've already done a very long video. I don't know how long it is already, but it's a very long video. And I think I covered the main things about the game. We might do a deeper analysis with further levels, a bit further into the next levels. But I think I covered more or less the essence of what makes Papers, Please so interesting from a game design perspective. I really recommend you play this game. It's not very expensive, and it's also very inspiring because this was done by one guy. I don't know if I mentioned before or not. And if you're a game designer, I think all game designers have this thing of have an idea that they would like to make, but it might take too long and they don't know if they can make it. Well, this is a prime example that you can make a game with very little resources, you know, and it's a very successful game at that. So play Papers, Please. And if you have any comments, if you saw any other game choices that were really interesting about this game, leave them in the comments down below. And I don't know, that's it. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'll be uploading more videos in the future. And if you have any questions, well, you can also visit www.gametist.com, like scientist, but Gametist. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.